Welcome back to my channel.
In this video, we are going to see how to configure Cisco Router as DHCP Server and DHCP Client. For this demo, I am going to use this topology. In this R1, I am going to router 1, I am going to use as DHCP Server. Router 2, I will configure as DHCP Client, and the remaining devices like PC, laptop, and printer, also I will configure as DHCP Client. This after configuring as DHCP server, this router will hand out the IP address to remaining DHCP clients. I'm going to use this IP address range for the DHCP pool 192.168.1.0/24 range. Okay, now we will configure the DHCP server. I'll go to R1 console first. Type no here. Enable. We'll go to global configuration mode. First, we'll configure the interface IP address to this router R1. I'll configure for interface FA0/0 IP address. We'll configure the IP address in the range of DHCP pool. The first IP address I will give 192.168.1.1 followed by subnet mask. I'll give no shutdown command. Okay, before configuring DHCP pool, we will reserve some IP addresses for devices which will use static IP address like printer, server. For that, we have to use this command IP DHCP excluded address. The first IP address 192.168.1.1. I will reserve these first 10 IP addresses. 168.1. The first IP address is our server IP address. So I'll use the 10 IP addresses for this exclusion. So now this 10 IP addresses, our server will not hand out to any of the DHCP clients. Okay, now we will configure the DHCP pool. For that, the command is IP DHCP pool. Now we have to give the pool name. I'll consider for office. The pool name is office. Next, we can see the available commands here. First, I will configure the network. As the DHCP pool, we are going to consider this one 192. This network 168.1.0 and network mask. I'll use 24-bit. Subnet mask 255.0. Next, we will configure default router so that our DHCP clients will use this router as an exit point to go to another networks. 168.1.1. This is our DHCP server router 1's IP address. And now I'll configure DNS server also. DNS server. If you have any local server, you can point out to that. But I'll give the IP address of Google server, public server. Okay, now we will go to DHCP client devices, whether it can receive the IP address from the DHCP server. First, I will go to PC, IP configuration. Instead of static, I'll change it to DHCP. Here you can see that it receives the IP address in the range of 192.168.1.11. It is starting from 11 because first 10 IP addresses we have reserved already. That is excluded address. Next, I will go to the laptop. We will verify that. I'll change it to DHCP. Here you can see it received the IP address 1.12. Next, I'll go to the printer. I'll change the IP configuration to DHCP. You can check here. It also received the IP address 1.13. Okay. Now I'll go to the router 2 console. This router 2 we are going to configure as DHCP Client. So I'll type no here. Enable config. So we have to configure our interface FG0/0 as DHCP. So interface F0/0. Now we have to configure the IP addresses in DHCP range. For that, the command is IP address DHCP. Now we have to give the no shut command. We have to wait for some time. It will receive the IP address from the R1 DHCP server. Here you can see FA0/0. The method is DHCP, but still it is waiting for the IP address. Here we can see it received the notification, console notification. It received the IP address from the DHCP server. The IP address is 192.168.1.14. We can check in the interface IP brief command output also. Here you can see 192.168.1.14. Also, we can check those things from the router 1 or DHCP server. What all the IP addresses it delivered to the DHCP clients. The command is, I'll go to the R1 console. The command is show IP DHCP binding. Here we can see it delivered 4 IP addresses from 11 to 14, 11, 12, 14. Now we have successfully configured router 1 as DHCP server and router 2 as DHCP client. And all other DHCP clients are able to receive the DHCP IP address from the router 1 DHCP server. That's all for today.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel.